Hi guys, I'm Christopher, this is Zach. We are Dream EV. Once again converting a Vanagon to electric power. We're about ready to get down and dirty with some wiring. And that's going to be super fun and exciting.
Sort of wiring.
We got a
rope
harness is what we're going to make. It's going to run the length of the chassis. It's going to split out where all our components go. And then we're going to pull that out and use it as reference when we actually build the real thing out of wire.
Yeah. We're going to start wiring, but before we start wiring, we have to get ready to wire. And that means some organization. This shelf behind me, full of scrap metal and various things. That's going to be the wiring shelf. So I'm going to clear it off and get it ready. Got this little crate. I'm going to put some dividers in it and get it ready to hold scrap metal. You'll do. Divider number 1. It's a start. Why am I doing this on the floor? I don't know. That's where the box was. Alright, got my plywood pieces cut. I'm gonna whop them together. And for whopping plywood pieces together in a hurry, that don't need to be pretty, nothing beats a crown stapler. So this is super rough and dirty, and that's fine. You know, why would I spend time on a thing I'm going to throw my scrap metal into when I can whip it up as fast as I can, and then I can spend that time on the thing I want to spend time on, which is the van. So stuff like this, don't take a lot of time on it. It's not important. Here is a workbench full of boxes, and inside those boxes are electrical parts. So we're going to get all those components onto this shelf in some sort of organized fashion. There's just a lot of little things, so we're going to try to get organized to make this as easy as possible on ourselves. We've got various wires here and boxes of parts here. You get the idea. But it's all the electrical stuff so that we have easy access to it for this next phase. We also got this bench all cleared off, ready for accepting big long wires. So when we start building this wire harness, we got somewhere to lay some stuff out. This is Christopher, laying out some holes for fir tree zip ties.
Yay!
So before we can put in our rope and get ready to do this other wire harness, we need to put this wire harness where it goes.
You want to sharpen the bit? Let's do that. Alright, we're thinking we're going to put a hole right here to pass the harness through. Put a nice grommet on there. It would be very nice.
You drew it?
Hopefully. You got that deeper? Oh, you're already in there. Jumping into action. Sorry, Zach, I'm such a tease.
You are. Tip in and yank it back out.
I wanted to pull it out and show it to the camera, though, you know?
Oh, yeah, well, I guess that is the business we're in. And we did decide that these two are sharing a hole, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Rope. What is this, a sailing ship?
Okay, what?
And the rope goes that way. This way. Up there. Here's some more rope. And through the dash. Okay, here is what we're talking about with this rope harness. Here's our big fat rope that represents the bundle of cables for our harness. And then every now and then you have something that has to come out of the harness and go to what it goes to. So here you can see a smaller piece of rope, and it's zip tied in, so the zip tie goes through the rope and through that rope. So when we're making up our harness outside, we'll know, like right here we have to have something branch out, and it'll be labeled so we'll know exactly what it is. And so this comes over, comes down, comes around, and dead ends here, and that is where we will put a plug, and that particular one is for our electric parking brake. So our electric parking brake right there, bang, that's where it ties in. That's where it ties into the harness. This other one comes through here, comes up, ties in here, and that's our BMS management. So you can see how this rope harness works. And then when we pull it all out, it'll all be nicely labeled, and we'll know exactly how long everything needs to be, and we can make it up outside the car.
Alright, we're back in the shop. Back on the wiring. We're gonna finish up the rope harness today. And maybe we'll just start earning some wires. No guarantees though.
It'll be a long day if we do that.
Besides the rope harness and the figuring out what the lengths are going to be, we have a bracket that needs to be made. So that might be something you do if you're feeling up to it. Well, we're going to keep at it. Slow and steady wins the race, right?
Apparently. That's what we've been doing so far. Why change the plan now?
Alright, we have these items, right? That's a MIDI fuse holder, and this is a 280 style fuse holder as well, right? And so this big one needs to take power and distribute it between the DC to DC converter, the battery, the tiny fuse panel, and the fuse panel up front. And this guy will handle relays and fuses back here and things like that. So what I'm thinking is we do is, because this guy needs access from the bottom, I think we'll make a bracket that does this kind of thing right here, where a side view from our tray is like this. We screw there and screw there, something like that. I'm sure Zach will draw you a much nicer picture.
No, we won't. 130 millimeters. 13 centimeters. 13 centimeters. Yeah. 13 centimeters. 13 centimeters. Yeah. Here's some stuff that's going on. Christopher and I are working on simultaneous brackets. This is a cardboard template from my bracket, which will hold this little fuse block and this relay block. And over here we've got Christopher, who is making a bracket for the same exact thing in a different location. So mine's going in the rear, and this one's going to go under the front dash. So two brackets for the same thing, done very differently for different locations. Alright, here's my cardboard template in place. It's a little floppy, but that's okay. I'm going to bend it back. You can see here, there's a cutout in the back of it here. We've got our 12 volt coming out of our DC to DC converter, and it's going to have to pass under this bracket and go up and go into our fuse block, and then come out of our fuse block and feed our 12 volt battery, and thus our 12 volt system for the car. And then here we have our relay holder that actually, you can see there's a cutout and it fits in it, and the wires for it actually come up and down from underneath, and that is another reason that it needs to be raised up. So I'm happy with it. Now I'm going to go make it out of a thin piece of steel. So once again, we have used the xylene transfer to template this for the cutout. And man, I'm telling you, if you do a lot of this kind of stuff, it is handy. Template, bracket. Just gotta bend it.
Don't weld your clamp to your project. That's not good.
That's solid advice right there.
Put that back down. A little bit of xylene later and we end up with something like this. This bracket holds the fuse holder just like that, and it sits underneath the dash where it's out of the way. One thing I'm going to add before we call this finished is an OBD2 port, and it'll sit right here next to it. That way we can get access to the information on our CAN bus.
Here we have please bracket. Simple and straightforward, but it took a little time to make. Now I just have to put it in the car.
I like it. Alright, here's where that bracket goes that I was working on. Underneath and to the right of the steering wheel.
Alright, check it out. Rope harness. So we have these smaller pieces coming out. They're all labeled, so this is DC to DC converter. It's going to go to that plug. Fuse. And it's going to go to this fuse block that I just made a bracket for. J1772. Charger. Yep. So we've got the truck harness running down. It's running back through here. Run along. And then out of the bay through that little hole there, where there will be a grommet.
There you go. That's how much wire we need. Seems a little excessive, don't you think?
All the times it'll focus and then it won't focus when you want it to.
If it didn't just come off of the van, I would say this is absurdly too much wire. We have this entire bench full of rope that represents where our harness will be and how long it will be and where the little branches are. I think what we're going to do is we're probably going to take either screws or nails or blocks or something to hold these little zigzags in place, and that way we just run the wire from one end all the way through the zigzags all the way to the other end, right where we need to go.
Well, as you can see, in lieu of simple screws, I took a hole saw and cut some round plugs, and that way we've got this little bit of a curve instead of just a really hard point where there's just like a screw or a nail. And I like it, so around the corner, around the corner, coming up to the chicane. It's a long straight. There's the other corner. And back. There you go.
Okay, most of the plugs have been located. Most of the wiring diagrams, we know exactly where things go. We're only looking for a couple more things in order to start making this happen. But we got the internet, so it shouldn't be too hard to find them.
So what have you seen today?
Oh my gosh, they started with you making a wooden box and throwing a bunch of metal into it. When we cleaned up the shop, probably didn't see much of that, that's boring. And then we made brackets.
We did make brackets. He made a bracket.
Let me go get the brackets, I'm happy.
I made a bracket.
We made brackets. Here, you admire mine and I'll admire yours.
Yours is a lot more complicated than mine in a way. I mean, it's got welding and beveled cuts.
Well, we didn't quite get down to the point of laying down wire on our harness board, I guess you could call it. But we did inventory the plugs. We know which ones were still missing. And we have wiring diagrams, a stack of them. And all we got to do is, point A to point B, right? IKEA set kind of style.
It's really like you've got an IKEA set and like a West Elm set and a Toyota Corolla set.
Well, I think that's it for the video today. We promised you wiring that, you know what? Here's some wiring. It's blue, 16 gauge TXL. Pretty exciting stuff. Yeah, unfortunately these brackets, they took up a little bit more of the expected time schedule than we had.
Yeah.
I kind of just assumed that we would just say that these things go in a general location, but I really wanted to have them physically mounted before we started running wires. Because, you really want to know where they end up. Yeah. Well guys, we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time, I suppose. Until then, be good people.
Thanks for watching.
That is a power steering motor. That's an electric brake booster. And that is a radar sensor.